Greetings, Blog Talk Radio. Welcome, welcome. It's another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. All is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test in one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. Call me now at area code 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143.
Your show will go live in 5
Press the number
seconds.
1
4,
on your telephone
3,
keypad when you're
2,
ready with your
1.
question, comment, or request, and
Log
I'll be more than
Radio.
happy to unmute your mic and bring you into the conversation. Welcome, greetings, one and all. Come on in, come on in. I truly do appreciate you. I'm humbled. I'm honored by you and your presence, your love, your support, your viewership, your listenership. I welcome my international listeners from all over the world. Thank you, Hong Kong, Australia, the UK, Canada, the US. Come on in, come on in. All is a blessing. Greetings, Democratic Republic of Congo. Greetings, Brazil. Welcome, Argentina, Democratic Republic of Congo, Dominican Republic. Come on in, come on in. Indonesia, come on in. Welcome, welcome, beloved. Greetings, Japan. All is a blessing. Thank you so much for your continued support at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time in the middle of your day, for showing up here in this creative space, this sacred space. Come on in, welcome, welcome. All is a blessing. Greetings, greetings one and all. Come on in and join us. I'm sure my cousins will be with us momentarily, both in the chat and on cam. Greetings, Nina Lloyd, beloved. All is a blessing. Know that I am with you and for you in your endeavors. I am with you, beloved. All is a blessing. I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I understand. I'm there for you, beloved. Greetings, Shamafia, Shamafia. Sudamaki, Bruce Brockchild. Greetings, beloved. Blessings to you and yours. Thank you for your continued support and your love and your gifts. All is truly a blessing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Matt Austin Bay. Greetings, beloved. Greetings, greetings. Grand risings, dark soul to you and yours as well. Come on in. Thank you for your love, your support, your continued listenership, your continued participation. Come on in. Greetings, greetings. Come on in. All is a blessing. Come on in. Assalamu alaikum, beloved. Come on in. Tabaragani, come on in. Hey Leo, hey Leo. Uhura Waku, come on in, come on in. Greetings, Kenya. Greetings, beloved. Thank you for your love and your support from Kenya, South Africa. Greetings, greetings. Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Niger. Come on in. I appreciate your love, your support, your listenership, your participation. Thank you so much. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Greetings, cousin. Always a blessing. Eshu Alek Buana Kosi Were Awo Onlo Uto Ne Iwo Ada Afanbo Osi Obatalami Ita Ni Ebo Onilio Abane Shu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, and uncovers fools. That one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Batala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May I ever reach your room. May I ever be accepted. May I ever allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Divine, all blessed greetings and salutations, one and all, to each and every one of you individually, and of course, collectively from all over the world. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince, Pan-African Spiritualist, Practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo, world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test, and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and it is indeed my ever-living reality. All as a blessing is crucial to the very foundation of my inner standing, my speaking, my teaching, my walk, my work, and prayerfully my demonstration along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we're challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is the place from where I begin, from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co-create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. I am always grateful to be here with you each and every day at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time, broadcasting live from this beautiful, historic, legendary, most enchanted, most haunted city in America, New Orleans, Louisiana, the land of my ancestors and those who came before me along this Hoodoo Obeya life path and journey, passing down the great Obeya stick along with the knowledge of the life-giving herbs, roots, plants, rituals, spirits, minerals, and indeed, as our beloved elder Denise Augustine says, our sacred stories. I'm always grateful that not one, but many take the time out of the middle of your day, whatever time zone you are listening in or viewing in right now, or enjoying an archive right now. I'm always grateful that people find their way to this place, to this shared sacred space, my open classroom, if you will, for not only the House of the Divine Prince, but indeed for my beloved cousins, Oloye, Ifawole, Oladeji, Ifatande, and of course the beloved Otun, Ifatomiwa. I'm grateful to have this platform to not only bring our individual ministries forward, our individual spiritual ministries forward, but to share our stories also with the community and to share your stories and your experience. For indeed, we learn and we grow from each other. We gather power and ashe, if you will, from each other, and we grow as a community. I'm also continue to be honored by the number of, I've got to come up with a term for it, family clients that I have, where it's not just one person in the family that I'm communicating with or working with, but many people within the dynamics of the family that we're working with and communicating with. It does strongly suggest to me a generational shift, if you will, away from the mainstream organized religious systems that we've often felt didn't serve our needs, didn't fully complete us as people and as a community. But indeed, many are now turning to ATR, to traditional African-based religious systems, to Ifa, to Voodoo, to Hoodoo, as a viable alternative, if not a foundation or root practice now within their own households and indeed within their families and prayerfully the generations that come after. So in continuing sort of an ongoing discussion about shadow work, family keeps coming up, ancestors keep coming up, Egun keeps coming up, Ori keeps coming up. And so indeed the topic...
Sorry, I don't understand.
So indeed the topic of soulmates is often attached to the topic of shadow work and indeed lineage. But I wanted to address it in a different way today by specifying soulmates, soul families, soul clans. Some people are uncomfortable with soul clans, but soul families, if you will. And the idea that indeed there's a part of us that is stardust. There's a part of us that is astrological and cosmic and indeed universal. And so we share a root, we share a family, but then we also have divisions of family, if you will, that make their way onto earth, just like the Oloye did, just like the Orisha did, to fulfill a purpose. And I often teach, and I'm sure my cousins will both have their perspective on, first the notion of soulmates, and then any ideas that they might want to share about soul families. I'm prayerful that Oloye Ifawole might talk about, Egbe a little bit and what that might represent in relationship to soul families and how that operates, in our lives and how it might show up indeed in our shadow work. And of course, the beloved Otun will just bring that me fire, that Aj, and she'll give us her sharing. So I offer you, please, as always, the phone lines are open at area code 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143. Press the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Be patient. Give me time to actually navigate to that tab. I'll see your hand is raised. I'll open your mic. I'll bring you into the conversation. And if you will, I'll also open the chat in the Blog Talk Radio platform as well. And of course, those of you who are here with me now live on screen, you can follow the streaming banner at the bottom of the screen for StreamYard. And you too can co-host with us and share your opinions, your comments, indeed your rational request, and we'll be more than happy to respond. And before I pass the mic, it's at 13, okay, and before I pass the mic, I just want to say, soulmates in general, kind of a hands-off topic for me for many years. Probably until the last 10 years, I became a little bit more receptive to even talking about soulmates outside of my ministry, outside of what we discussed within the dynamics of our spiritual house. And that is because there's so much diluting the wine. There's so much muddying the waters, if you will, about love, relationships, what relationships should look like, and that sort of Western Greco-Roman footprint that's implanted on top of it that has diluted how many of us, greetings, Mom, peace and blessings, Queen Mother, many of our vision about what love is has been sort of polluted by, you know, Ken and Barbie and TV and pop culture and many other things that we could easily digress off into. But sort of the idea that soulmates, and the key word being soul mates, come together, you know, for some limited physical or even love or carnal based connection, sort of strips away all the power and attachment that spirit is, and indeed soul is. So I teach that soulmates are really about soul level connections, soul level work. And I know I'm a little slow in the chat, but it's really hard for me to talk and chat. So I try to get my piece out and then pass the mic and let my cousins come back at it, and then I can sort of independently view the chat. So let me make my piece on soulmates, and then I'm going to move on and let my cousins have the mic. Soulmates are really about a soul connection, a soul level connection. Now, many cultures, many ethnic groups veer that through various systems, through various cult practices. Perhaps Egbe among the Yoruba being just one example of that. And so a soul connection is when two or more people feel they are linked on a soul level in a significant and extraordinary way. It's the sense that your link transcends the earth plane, transcends the carnal, transcends just normal waking everyday activity, transcending the practical details of our relationships, like being co-workers or being neighbors or being family related or not being family related. All these things are at play, as well as possible marriage partners, love relationships, friendships. And that's something much more broader than what, you know, sort of the Cupid, Valentine's Day, chocolates, hearts, marriages, white dresses, wedding rings, much of that, which is relatively new, by the way, culturally speaking, historically speaking. You know, when we go back into the, you know, the De Beers and the finding of the diamond mines in South Africa, you know, we're really not talking about that far back in history. That much of our present idea about soulmates, you know, has its sort of generation, where it's coming from. But there's a much older idea. I like to talk about Oshosi, you know, superseding um, Cupid. There are other deities that I could call by name from other ethnic groups that predate Cupid. You know, your little fat, naked cherub baby with the bow and arrow, you know, that shoots these crazy arrows that make people fall into some kind of foolish love. Whereas these other deities, these other powers like Oshosi, have these magical arrows that always hit their target, that don't stray from, you know, the course, that have this magic imbued in them that ensure direction. And so I often associate Oshosi in one word as direction. So sometimes we meet people, you feel like you know them, whether it's about love or just friendship, you feel connected to them. We all have people within our bloodlines and our families that we feel no connection to, know very little about. I pray that our demonstration here on the show, me and my co-host, shows you the power and the magic of spirit and soul level connections and spirit level connections. And understand that there are more than one type of quote unquote soulmate. You know, you have soul partners, you have soul ties, you have past life soulmates, you have karmic soulmates, you know, which is definitely not the type of soulmate relationship you would want to marry into or date into, because often in a karmic soulmate connection. You're here to work out some kind of karmic debt, to repair something, to fix something, to renew something, to finish some undone event, that predates this life, this existence, this present time. So soulmate connections have to be really deep, have to be really rooted to transcend from one lifetime to another, one lifespan to another. So I promised I was going to pass the mic. It's 19. Okay, I'm going to pass the mic. And I'm going to bring in my cousins, my beloved cousins, Otun and Oloye, into the conversation. And give me something to drink, and let me fill the chat real quick.
Alafia, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It's good to see you all again. So soulmates, Egbe, and the tie-in. So as we know, Egbe is our heavenly mates. In Ifa, it is shared that Egbe, that we have a distinct twin in Olorum. And within that twin, we call them the astromates. So there's the tie-in that my cousin speaks a lot about with the astral levels. When we deal with Egbe, we deal with a variety of categories. Iolode, Jagun, which is warrior, and many more categories. There's a lot of categories. Within that, you have sometimes people going through some different challenges, struggles, ups and downs. And some of that could be that, as we know, we've talked about before, the relationship or pact that you made before coming here to this earth, and that you went in front of Olodumare, you kneeled in front of Olodumare to share what it is that you desired to manifest here in this lifetime. And just the same, though, is that you had that relationship with this astromate while in Olorum, while in heaven. And some of the challenges we might face is because we did not fall in alignment with what we promised our astromate in heaven. Some we find struggle in finding a wife or husband here because we did not do what we needed to do ritually to appease Egbe for us to be able to move forward here on this lifetime. Sometimes it is that things will not materialize in our life because we did not do what we needed to do with the astral twin in order for them to be with us as well. Sometimes Egbe comes and they do, it's like a tricky thing. You see some things going on that you can't really explain. You find sometimes that they hide stuff on you, or you find sometimes that they you'll be doing things and you don't know why all of a sudden this is happening or that's happening, and you're looking around and you still can't figure it out because they got jokes for you. So dealing with Egbe is very interesting, and for Ifa, there is initiation that goes with Egbe. Usually between a day and 3 days of initiation for Egbe. And in that initiation, you'll find a lot more information, even about your life, but about how you coincide with Egbe and what Egbe category that you belong to. What was it that you promised in heaven before you came here? And what did your promise your astromates, so that your astromates will be working with you and not be upset with you? When they are upset with you, that's when a lot of things sometimes go awry. So then we have to do the offerings to Egbe, and there's different things that you get for each Egbe, whether it's a pot or whether it's another thing. There are different things that you get for each category of Egbe. And so Egbe is a intricate topic sometimes. So these are some of the basics of Egbe. There are many, many verses, especially Eje Ogbe, that talks about, like around even the first verse, that if you're an Elegbe, then that means you are one that needs to be initiated to Egbe. And so you have close relationship to Egbe, and it's wise for you to initiate to it. So these are some of the basics of working with Egbe. And then sometimes how it ties in to astral, to a mate here or a friend here, in that, in essence, it might have been your friend up in heaven. And now we say that there's never a mistake as to how people kind of come together. And whether it's for a season, or whether it's for a reason, or whether it's for a lifetime, all of that will show itself over time. So we have to allow sometimes to be patient to see just exactly what the relationship is to be. But I hope that gives you a little bit of information on Egbe and the possible tie-in with who we would call soulmate here on this realm, on this plane, and that it could stem back, in different lifetimes previously. So I'm glad to be back. You got to excuse me, I'm a little bit tired. There was a lot going on this weekend. I did a lot of work. So, but I'm here, and I'm here for you all. And to my cousins, I love you both. Hello, how are you? Alafia, Aboro Boya, but she say, peace and blessings be upon you. Whatever. All right, peace. Go ahead, Otun.
What she say? Oh, Divine Baba and listening family, watching family, peace and blessings. Queen Mother Savage, I see you. I saw you as soon as I got on here.
Love my mother. Love my mother.
Yes. Our elders, uplift them now while they are here. Give them their flowers now. I love you, Mama Savage. I haven't met you, but that don't matter to me. It is good to be here. Welcome back, Baba Oloye. And everyone, I hope your weekend were blessed. I hope doors opened for everyone, whether in whatever area you needed it to open in your life, whether it was healing, prosperity, elevation, anything. I hope all of that for you. Greetings and honor to my Aluo, Prince Baba Edabayo Latona, and Olari Ifatoyen Iyalode Egbenike Oyebola Latona. Soulmates. Okay. Well, Baba Oloye did actually give most of the information as far as Egbe and what is considered your heavenly mates or your family that you have before you come here. And that can also include spouse. That is something that I wanted to add on as well. That can also compound sometimes issues in finding mates or finding a wife or a husband. There may have been something that needed to be done, a promise you didn't fulfill, as Baba Oloye said. So it's a lot of different aspects. And again, how the people that are supposed to be in your life and when. We at times as humans, because we're going through the experience and we're living it and we're feeling it, especially those that are close to our heart and emotion. We tend to sometimes, because we can see that the potential in a person, try to make permanent situations out of temporary things. So I encourage everyone watching and listening today to truly examine yourself, dive deep. Healing is pertinent. Ancestral work is pertinent, because a lot of the times, finding that connection and being open and able to recognize the connection with someone can also help by you doing your own healing first. That way it takes away a lot of the false imagery. It takes away a lot of that, the Lifetime movies that some of us grew up watching, or the Hallmark movies, because we know the love life, it's really not like that. So in as far as soulmates, understand there's a lot of different things at play. Soulmates, different connections you have with people that may not necessarily mean soulmates. So it is good first to always heal, have a routine of prayer or some form of meditation, keep your mind clear and positive, because all of that plays a role in recognizing who is or potentially is not for you, whether that be a spouse, a friend, or anything of that nature. So keep those things in mind. And I look forward to seeing where the conversation goes and hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Give me a second. I was caught up in something else and I couldn't unmute myself for a moment there. Certainly I appreciate both of you for, helping to support the Ifa Yoruba perspective. That's one of the things that I enjoyed about both of you all participating actively in the show. We know that there is an Orisha romance within our community, and people are really enamored and in love with the culture and the practice and the tradition. And so I appreciate, you all bringing that perspective and then your own individual perspective. As a practitioner of Voodoo and Hoodoo, of course, Kanja, Obia, I wanted to go back and address the question of soulmates and twin flames. Soul twins is what Dark Soul Jewess said. Empress Sag Divine Bonita said, what about different twin flames? And those are really great questions in reference to some of what I was saying previously about there being a spiritual origin for many of us that's rooted in not just couples or twins, but really in soul families, soul clans, if you will, soul groups. And we come here to fulfill a purpose, sometimes to bring a particular gift, to bring a particular expertise to humanity, to bring and push things forward that are in the best interest of not just the individual, but the families, and then subsequently the earth itself, the greater community. But you also have twin souls, twin flames that are sort of split, burst from one originating soul, one originating power. And so that energy cannot be contained in just one being. And so it has to be co-shared, if you will, among more than one being to express the fullness of that energy. Some people in the magical community suggest that the 12 disciples help to balance out that power of God, that if indeed this one man carried all the energy of the power of God, then it had to be co-shared, if you will, among a group of other beings to balance out that energy, to balance out that reverberation, if you will, as it when anything moves through the universe, when anything moves through the cosmos, it creates a reverberation that imprints not just its movement forward, but where it's been, and that subsequently affects everything else that follows behind it. And so we pass down traumas, we pass down skills, we pass down social skills and tools and abilities. We pass down the mindset for ministry the mindset for healing, the mindset for teaching, the mindset for music and art and creativity in our blood, but we also pass it down through spirit interaction. So these interactions can also be created by intense energy, intense events, sometimes traumatic events, other times great positive events that also create an input that can cement individuals together that can then later show up as a soulmate family or a soulmate clan. So often when you meet someone and you feel you have this sense of soulmate level connectivity, first, as my cousin suggested, check your own heart, check your own tab, check your own pulse. Where are you spiritually in your journey? Where are you personally in your journey? What have you been asking the universe for? And sometimes in the not asking, because sometimes you all are in the position of the not asking, you're just sort of living life day by day and sort of dealing with what comes as it may. There's a reverberation. So you're still sending out an energy that helps to create and recreate the reality in which you exist in, which is rooted in what you believe and what you focus your intent and your energy on. So the soulmate will often come along, often as the illusion of a problem, issue, a block, a complication, sometimes more friendly, more passive, more benevolent. Other times there's the romantic interest that's a part of the reconnecting, if you will, at the soul level. But there are all kinds of ways that we can tap the soul level without necessarily being physical, without necessarily being sexual. So often when a client comes, particularly a brand new client comes, and there's a question about anything about soulmates, I often stop the conversation, don't give me any more details, and we throw divination. And I first discern the root of the connection. And as my cousin Oloye suggested, it's done a very specific way in Ifa in terms of denoting Egbe families, if you will. And it's done a very specific way in Voodoo. But we first look at why. Why are you here? Why did I call you here? Why did I create this experience? What am I here to learn? What am I to gain inwardly, personally, as an individual from this experience that makes my life better, makes the partner's life better, and subsequently makes everyone's life better? But again, in the Western sense of things, it's a real short trip between the meeting, the hello, the how you doing, to the romantic interest. And so we often don't fill in many of those blanks before we walk down the aisle, before we choose to bring a child into the world. And then later on, we run into relationship complications, family complications, all these things which further cloud shadow work. That's why I originally said this is really an extension of shadow work conversation, but more specific to why is it that family, even friends, close associates, perhaps soulmate connections, perhaps Egbe related connection, why do we have this synchronicity in energy? And it's first and foremost to bring something beautiful into the world, to heal something that needs to be healed in the world, to fix something that needs to be fixed in the world, to create and recreate something that creates a better world. First, always from our position as God and Goddess, as the human individual in our reality. But then it reverberates out to your family, to your loved ones, to your community, to your peers, to your coworkers. If you're building authentic relationships with people. We talked the other day about, the bigger the city, often the less you know about your neighbors. The fewer your neighbors' names you tend to know, the less you really know about your community. And people visit the South or visit the small town and make comments like, oh, they have that small town family community, feeling. No, people are in your business. You're in a village, people are in your business, you know, so there's always that opportunity to sit back and meditate on that dimensional intra dimensional reality of what brings us together. And one more thing I want to say before I pass the mic, you know, just the power of the DNA and finding cousins, sometimes distant cousins, second, third, fourth, fifth cousins, but then finding that reoccurring theme of healing or art or ministry or music, you know, really speaks to the strength of not just blood ties, but soul ties. And many of us have spouses, your spouses prayerfully, your husbands, your wives, you are together, hopefully, prayerfully, because you have a soul level tie. You know that all of your relationships have and create soul level ties, all of your relationships. You know, not to sound like a prude, but not to sound old fashioned, but that's why, you know, people were concerned about who you slept with, who they mom and them is. Let me meet your people. You know, what village did they come from? You know, what do they practice over there? People were in your business in a village, you know, environment. And you know, that's not a negative, you know, if it's done in love, if it's done for the benefit of the whole, if it's done to create growth, you know, for both parties, and particularly in a soulmate based relationship. You got to be able to suspend to some degree your own personal desire for immediate satisfaction and be able to look at a greater picture, to be able to look at a greater dynamic to the relationship. Greetings, everyone who's joining in the chat. Chat just keeps moving so quickly on me. Y'all are really fired up today, and I appreciate that. And I invite you to come on in to the conversation, to share your story, to share your opinions, ask your questions, present your requests. We'll be more than happy to assist you. We want to greet Neophyte Bokor. You have now been christened by the beloved Otun. Someone christened you, the priest. I think it was Otun. Somebody christened you in the chat. Hold on. I'm about to say something crazy. Somebody gave you a title in the chat, Neophyte Bokor, and now I've lost it because the chat is moving so quickly on me. I think it was priest, though. Yeah, it was Shemafia, brother priest, Neophyte Bokor. Shemafia,
Okay.
the beloved Shemafia Sudamaki Rothschild has now christened you, the priest, Neophyte Bokor, and we're going to roll with that.
I appreciate. I'm definitely humbled.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
From the board. Okay.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Aside from that, that was a lovely surprise. I love that. But I wanted to speak on this because I'm still learning about how we can actually find or seek out or encounter our soulmates, if that's what we want to if that's the nomenclature that we're going to use, soulmates, and we're going to stick with it. What I found out for myself personally, that it does help for you to step out of the way of yourself every once in a while, especially when you're out. And a lot of us right now in this day and time are looking for that connection. We're looking for that soulmate. Very few of us actually have found it and are demonstrating to others how you go about that. So we go and ask those people, hey, you know, this relationship looks great. You know, let me take some notes here. Or you turn to the TV. You turn to the TV, and what's being presented to you is supposedly a well-to-do relationship. But the drama sets in, and all of the skeletons come tumbling out of the closet. And then what we thought was an example of a great relationship really was just on the surface. It only looked like it. You dive deep into that water and you find that they were just kind of putting on a show, which is all well and good. I'll give them that. But when we're starting to model ourselves after these different things that we see on television subconsciously, then it starts to manifest itself in our relationships, how we interact with each other, let alone in our relationships. But I did that same thing. And it took a lot for me to figure out that, okay, I need to get out of the way of myself. Myself is looking and has tools, but I'm getting in the way. And what does that look like? A sense of being humble. From what I can gather, being able to humble yourself to give way to what is ancestral inside of us, right? That is you casting out your light and being able to attract those things that reflect that light, rather than that shadow that is also being cast by your light, attracting those things that are in the dark, those things that are trauma, those things that attract other people's negativity, right? Because you can be soulmates on the darker end as well, right? You're attracted to somebody's trauma because it looks familiar to your trauma, and you start sleeping with and making babies in that trauma, and then you have a trauma child. And
I call them trauma mates. I call them trauma mates.
Trauma mates.
Yes, that's right. And sometimes they're not mates in the lover sense. Sometimes it's groups of friends. But you got to sometimes stand back in the third person and watch and observe and listen to what happens when you get around your clique, your peers, your group of friends. What direction does the conversation go in once the curtains close and the lights go down? What direction then does the conversation go in? You know, what direction then does the energy move in? You know, do your peers uplift what's good in you, or do they support and enable sometimes what's addictive and regressive, you know, in you? And sometimes that's trauma clicking, trauma mating, trauma groups. You know, I share your trauma, you share my trauma, you know, so let's go out and war story. That means to talk about, you know, your trauma in more romantic terms, just really to hear it being said out loud, as opposed to addressing it. You know, because again, as a consultant, there's the client, and I use this word specifically, and caller, who really just wants to talk and re-talk about the trauma. And it's quick and easy to identify, because as soon as you start to offer a suggestion, you're often interrupted with more of the story. Well, wait a minute. Well, let me tell you, maybe I should explain. Well, let me go further into, and I say, oh no, beloved, you've said enough. No, let's hear from spirit. Okay, well, let me explain. Well, let me tell you what happened, you know, and there's a retelling. There's a segment to gossip. There's a component to gossip that the person who's gossiping internalizes. And so it's something that you do to yourself when you know there's a problem, you talk about the problem, everybody around you is hearing you discuss the problem. I had a very important friend the other day, right before a very important event. Let's just say some drama went off in her family. And after that moment, the next 5 people she encountered, for at least 15 minutes, she repeated what had happened. Well, let me tell you what had just happened. So-and-so called me, and this happened, and that happened. It's a retelling, and it's something that we get from the retelling of the trauma. As a runaway child on the street, I had to discover that and put the brakes on that even in my own life. Okay, when you're a kid, there's a certain degree of sympathy and empathy and understanding. You know, oh, you're a kid, you're young, you're cute. you're in a bad place. You're on the street. But then as you begin to age, you age out of that sympathy. People then begin to respond with, you got a job. Do you know how to get a job? Let me tell you how to go and get, resources over here. But so you grow out of the retelling of that story. You then have to tell your story from where you are in the moment. And that's a key component to doing any kind of authentic shadow work. You got to be honest about how you tell your story. Be careful about how you tell your story. Do you set yourself up as the victim in your story? Do you set yourself up always as the person that's, on the outs in your story? Do you give yourself any degree of power and empowerment within the dynamics of your story? So be careful about how you tell your story. But I also want to speak to something Neophyte Bokur said about the looking for, because often that's the question. I'm looking for my soulmate. How do you look for? And I kind of alluded to the idea, beloved Neophyte Bokur, that we all soulmates. None of this is accidental. None of this is just haphazard or random. From the person that you pass walking on the city street, that in your mind you think you're never going to see again, because I've lived a life to see that person again, to see that footprint show up again, because there indeed are synchronicities that take place, along our journey. But then there are your spouses, your husband, your wife, your children, those people, most intimately connected to you, that to some degree are predetermined by fate, by soulmate connections. And so your wife could have been your mother in a past life, could have been your uncle in another life, could have been a neighbor in another life, and some degree of energy. So usually some event, much like how we would identify a poltergeist or a ghost, or some energy that's trapped in a particular, geographic location, physical location. Well, we're able to also create that kind of footprint on the soul level, So just imagine, if you will, use your imagination, please, if you will. We're back in ancient Egypt, and we're in the belly, of some great magical tomb, ceremonial ritual tomb, and high priests and high priestesses are burning incense, frankincense, and myrrh. You hear the sound of bells chiming rhythmically, creating a vibration throughout the temple. You have your priests, your priestesses, your initiates, and you're doing something great and something, really powerful. And then something tragic happens. The cataclysm happens, the earthquake happens, and then we become reborn again, in another life, as Awos and Babalawos and Iganifas and priest practitioners and Hoodoo Obeya Bokurs, as us. Who's to say that, we weren't a part of a spiritual group, from another life? And that's where the curiosity of readings that speak to past lives, comes into play. Sometimes people want to remove the block. Sometimes people want clarity about what created, that point of energy in time and space that knits souls and groups of souls together. I was also taught, as a descendant of Bahala, that some of us were indeed within those mansions, in many mansions and high places that some of the prophets speak about in the heavens, and have been predetermined to come as healers, teachers, spiritual workers, spiritual practitioners. And therein a soul clan, a soul family is created from that. And so there can be very intimate emotional exchange. I love my cousins, Oloye and Otun, and you as well, Neophyte, and I haven't met y'all physically yet, but I feel the same. I feel the same degree of connection, but I also look at the synchronicities, the similarities, and clearly we weren't called to be here and marry each other. Clearly we weren't called to be here to, partner up, but to click up, for lack of better words, to group up, to move particular ideas and energies, and real world projects, forward. What brings mighty corporate business owners together, to create these industries that last generations? You can't just leave it to accident. You just can't leave it to, we looked at everybody's resume and it kind of, match up. Because even if you have resumes that match up, that don't mean you're supposed to get married. I know I just knit two ideas there together. Yeah, even if you didn't check the resume, you didn't check the credit report, they looking good, they smell good, that still don't mean y'all supposed to get married. That still don't mean y'all were supposed to, produce children. And the unfortunate side of that reality is the unfortunate side of that reality.
Yeah, I think DNA begins to serve a good purpose. Oh, okay.
And everyone addresses that. Oh, I'm sorry. It was me. I had you on mute. Say that again.
I said that's where a lot of it comes into DNA, especially when it comes to family. I don't believe that there is a mistake that we now today are reaffirming who our family was in previous life. That if they were godly people, if they were people that were possibly in this tradition or traditions similar, that there's no mistake that we are following and reaffirming some of those footsteps. And Ifa says that when we initiate, it's like we reboot 7 generations. So even if in these last few generations now, our family were Christian ministers or even imams, it doesn't matter. They're still people of God that's doing God's work and trying to fulfill God's will. And so now here we are today as Bokono, as Babalao, as whatever title that we might go by. But the biggest part of it is that we are trying to fulfill the work of the Creator within us and to be blessing other people. We're servants. And when we're dealing with the traditions, we are servants to the Creator. We're servants to Spirit. So in that, I just don't believe, I believe that DNA fulfills a significant purpose, and the family that you came through fulfills the purpose of the birth of your destiny here in this realm. So now we have to go back to the destiny, because it's then the destiny that puts things into place for whoever you meet and the relationship that you might encounter with them. And then when you encounter that relationship, it's all about, are you willing to walk in that relationship and understand the contract of that particular relationship? Because we all have contracts. There's a contract that we're fulfilling right now, and we might not know the contract. We weren't there, or our memory is not there as to what fulfillment of a contract we're doing with a particular person, which then says that although it's very difficult, it's that ability to then say a contract is over and let people go at times, or things go. Not being able to hold on so deeply to things that it makes you fall totally apart. So soulmates, even in that, it could be a soulmate that's here for a season, that's here to give you the blessings of this lesson, to say maybe in past part of your life, you've gone through these challenges and maybe you don't feel like you fully love yourself. Now here comes a person that shows that you're worthy of this love, but maybe they're not meant to be there for your lifetime. But then we have this significant broken heart because they leave, and we're not able to get ourselves back together when that person was just there to show you that there is people that will love you. Maybe it's this type of employment. You never felt like you were worthy of making this type of money. But here comes this particular person that sees something in you that gives you the opportunity. And when you go in, you do a great job. And now you're able to make this money, put it on a resume, and now go further in this. So soulmates, as you shared, can come in a variety of diverse packages. And in that package, you have to discern how and what that relationship is meant to be and at what level it's supposed to be. But DNA for a family, I believe that it takes us back to the core of what our family was. When I look at our family, we're looking at 3 chiefs on this particular line right here, right now. So then that tells me then that there's the possibility of our family coming from a royal lineage. Because there's no mistake that 3 people that just met over the space of 2 years, or a year, 2 years, are all wearing chieftaincy titles.
Oh, sure. I can agree in that. There is a reason for everything, and I long stopped believing in coincidence years ago. I wanted to address Craig Burns. I did not forget you, dear heart. He made a comment a while back asking if the growth, the difference in growth rate, I believe is in reference, and if a person is still your soulmate, if the likeness becomes too distant. First and foremost, understand that everyone, whether it's a friend, whether it's your spouse or the person that you're in a relationship with, is not going to grow at the same rate that you are. See, we have to understand that our destinies, each of our destinies is our own. Okay. And we are all required to walk our own destiny. There will come a time, however, when another being's destiny will parallel ours. In that case, we will join together, or those people will join together, either a spouse or becoming some kind of a relationship or partnership, and they will each, but see, the thing is to each walk, do your work while in parallel. You have to learn your lessons, and they have to learn theirs. Your lessons don't always have to be one and the same. And sometimes it can be that some of your lessons you get from watching them make their mistakes, and vice versa. Some of the lessons they learn from watching your mistakes. But you can't look at a person's growth, whether you're ahead or behind, or feel any kind of way, or feel like you're lacking, or that they're lacking because they're not at your level, or vice versa. It's not always going to be that way. Okay. Let me tell you that first, I would also like to encourage us to get out of the mindset of going, oh, I'm going out and I'm finding this soulmate. I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. Because I'm going to tell you something. We're flawed as humans. Okay. The Most High's plan is divine. Therefore, he's not hiring assistants. He don't need our help. But because we're living this life and walking this human walk, we tend to want to not let the control be taken out of our hands, especially our people. Women, listen to me, sisters, because I'm talking to you. We have an issue with not being in control. And for some of our queens, some of us have been strong for so long, we don't know what it is not to be strong. We don't know how to let the reins go a little bit. Some things are above our pay grade. We all know what it is when we went looking for somebody and we saw what we got, right? Not so good. Who's to say your soulmate? Who's to say they're not ready yet? Who's to say that Oladeji isn't still preparing them, getting them ready for you? But our impatience, we allow our feelings, our emotion of loneliness to come inside. And then we're like, okay, this is what I want. And because we can get caught up in seeing a person's potential instead of what they're showing us that's right in front of our face, we will tend to allow our loneliness to push this to the backside, or things that should be red flags. And you know what? Well, they're going through something too, and maybe this or maybe that, or maybe if I'm a little understanding, they'll change with this or change with that. It's not up to us to treat a person a certain way or give certain behaviors or favors to encourage change, because That's not us. You're not meant to change them. You're not meant to change them. As my cousin Baba Oloye said, people are coming to our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Okay, and I would like to offer this as an example. I grew up with my husband. We're both from the Bronx, from the same projects. And he ran with my cousins and them growing up. He was a street dude. I ain't want no parts of that street dude because I knew what came with that. And we hung out a little bit when I was young, but I didn't think nothing of it. Okay, that was in the 90s. No, I'm not going to tell y'all my age. So, time passed. I graduated high school, left. That was when I was 15, 16. I did not see him again until maybe the end of 2008 in Virginia. Don't know why he was in Virginia. He was going into a venue. I was coming out. We ran into each other. Okay. There were certain things that I had to go through in that time that we hadn't seen each other. There were certain things that he had to go through in that time and certain lessons that he had to learn while we had not seen each other. And then Olodumare saw fit for us to come back together. So understand, it's not about not being willing to let a person go. Maybe there are things that they need to learn that they have to grow into without you. Because if you're there, it may hurt you. It may tear down what you have already built. So keep in mind that a lot of the things that are happening to you are not that, they are happening for you. We have to be willing to let people grow to grow. Okay? We have to be willing to let people go to grow. And sometimes where Olodumare, where God is taking you, everybody can't go. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So even if you've dealt with a person for a small amount of time, no matter the form of relationship, it doesn't mean that they're not a soulmate. Because in that moment, in that space, in that lesson, they were absolutely your soulmate because you had a real connection. You had a real bond, and it doesn't take away from the good. See, we got to understand that some people that come into our lives and we feel like, oh, they was our friend, or we was in this relationship. When we part, or when things or the situation comes to a time where this person is not going to be in our life any longer, we can't just take that whole ball of everything and throw it away, because you're throwing away important lessons. You're throwing away some things that maybe you need to heal from, and you may have inadvertently place some healing on that person that they needed you in their life for that moment, for that growth, for that lesson that they couldn't have absorbed or received from anywhere else. So your life, your lessons, all of that, as Divine says, all is a blessing. You may not see it and you may not feel it in the moment, but we got to be willing to discern. That's what the healing comes for. That's where that shadow work comes in at. Because if you're not discerning, if you're not understanding the connections and what's being presented before you, you're going to keep falling for the okie doke. You're going to keep going through those same situations. You're going to keep going to those same attractors in the darkness and the things that's going on, because hurt people hurt people. If you're attracted to someone else's pain because you're going through your own, you're going to bleed all over each other, and neither one of you cut the other. This is why shadow work is important. This is why healing is important. Because before you can get to that soulmate, you got to do some of that work. Otherwise, your emotions are going to be leading you around like a puppet master. And you're not going to know which way is up, because all you're going to be doing is feeling. You're not discerning. You're not thinking. Critical thinking is a must. And we have to learn how to put things in their place when they belong, so we can cut these cycles. Okay? Sorry, I went so long. Thank you so much.
All is a blessing, beloved. I accept everything you said, 100. And I love how everyone is giving their perspective, coming from their understanding, and I'm grateful for that. But I also want to say that your soulmate, soul, hence the word soul, is not confined to a physical body. And so if you're not evenly matched up, if you are bumping heads, your soulmate can literally leave the body of the host, lover, for lack of better words, that you're involved with, and move on. And then you're left with the mess to deal with, the messy part to deal with, the truth really to deal with of that individual. Souls can grow together, can choose to evolve together, can say, okay, we both got some issues, we're going to work them out together. But that doesn't always happen. And often people need space. People sometimes need guidance. Sometimes people are guided away from by their ancestors, by Oladeji, by Mawalisa, by God and the higher powers, so that we indeed can regain our divinity, our own sense of self and consciousness. And it doesn't mean that that relationship was bad or a waste of time or energy if you have absorbed the lessons, if you have internalized the lessons, if you accepted the lessons from within that relationship, you know, whether it's a love relationship, whether it's a co-worker, you know, boss relationship, whatever the relationship, if you have absorbed and understood the lessons, then there's no loss there, perhaps. But indeed, souls grow apart, you know, find their own level. We say water seeks its own level. You know, souls will indeed fulfill that higher divine purpose, which often supersedes our carnal desires in the moment, our wants and needs in the moment. So I think it's inherently problematic, neophyte Bokor, when we sort of are looking for that quote unquote one special soulmate that's going to fulfill that particular area, you know, of our lives. And indeed, if that is what the prayer is, then we got to be real specific about that, you know, because sometimes that does not always come equally yoked, you know, as the church folks say. That's not always productive, you know, to your ultimate spiritual growth. And we have all seen supposedly in love, you know, couples, personal lives implode, you know, right before us in the media and on television, you know, with all the money available to them, with all the resources, you know, available to them, you know, and those relationships just implode, you know, and then with the public celebrity attached to them, often right before our eyes, you know, on tape, on film, you know, etc. It's out there in a public way for us to sort of view and observe. So I think finding that soul level love first in yourself and for yourself and for your purpose and for your journey, that draws like a magnet other souls of equal vibration, but particularly that love mate that you might be seeking, that anyone might be seeking um, at any given, you know, point in time. I also think that we fit into an artificial framework about monogamy, and that's a whole nother question. Monogamy, polygamy, that's a whole nother show. I'm sure we could literally do a whole 3-hour show on polygamy and versus monogamy, its original and authentic demonstration versus its modern, you know, representation. Because now you hear in polyamory and other terms that once didn't exist in the conversation. Now you got degrees to it, you know. So we could easily have another conversation. But I do accept that, you know, again, if you have the footprint, energetic footprint of past lives available to us, then who's to say you don't run across more than one lover from the past life, more than one person that you had some kind of intimate connection to. And no, it does not mean that you're supposed to pair up now with each one of those people as you encounter them in this life. But it is meant to jog a memory, jog a feeling, jog some energy loose within us to cause us to take a certain course of action. Prayerfully, that's in our best interest. That mirrors, you know, our best interest. Grandma used to say, oh, baby, you're going to love, you know, more than one person in your life. You know, when you're 15, 14, 16, you tore up about, you know, the relationship. I can't tell you how many readings I've had to do with people between the ages of 18 and 21, you know, who thought that their high school love was they soulmate and that was it. and that was the end of the world because that relationship was now over, and couldn't understand that, the soul could move on, just as the souls move on in death, just as souls move on at the birth, coming out of the canal. A soul can move on while we're still living and breathing, into another host body. Just as we grow and evolve and change, we then pull to us people, places, and things that mirror our energy, that mirror our footprint. And some of you find that hella confusing to deal with when it's problematic. Well, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be offended. I didn't ask to be insulted. I didn't ask to have someone do, terrible things to me. Where does predetermination come into that? Where does precognizance come into that? But indeed, there are many challenges, battles, mountains that we face in our lives and will face in our lives that we pre-contracted. Was it Otun who introduced the idea of the contract? Or was it Oloye? That these relationships are Oloye talked about. We contract to come into this life. We contract to be confronted with particular battles, to particular mountains, that force us to move energy in a different direction, that force us to move things around in a way that otherwise would remain stagnant, would remain in place. But we've pre-chosen to come in and address, those things. And as a young person, that was hard for me to accept. That was a hard concept for me to even wrap my mind around, coming out of the background, the childhood that I was coming out of. But as a more mature spiritual person today, I wouldn't take anything from my journey. I wouldn't change anything in my past. If it would mean that just moving one chess piece out of position would possibly mean that I would have died young, or ended up in Angola for life, or ended up, having 20 kids, with 5 baby mamas, and not being committed to none of them, and not hand raising any of the children. There's just so many other paths that our lives could go in if just one chess piece is moved out of position. I think about great events. I see you, Otun. I think about great events like 9/11. Just imagine the person who was late going to work that day. Just imagine the person who decided they were just going to stay home and smoke and watch Jerry that day and call in sick. Just imagine the person who decided, oh, I got way too much to do, on my plate. Let me go run these errands first. Just imagine.
I had 3 people that, because one had just had surgery, my sister-in-law had just had surgery. I had 2 other cousins that were on their way to work that day. And then my brother got caught up in it in DC, but him and his wife were able to get to a place of safety. Destiny and Destiny and Ifawole was surely with them all, that they then was able to manifest life through that whole situation. Look at those people that were on that plane that really knew that their time was coming to an end, and they attacked whoever was attacking that plane after hearing what happened in New York. And we don't usually get phone calls on planes, but they were all able to get phone calls that day on that plane. And they were hearing all of this, only to find out that the people that kidnapped them was getting ready to go into the Pentagon, or the other, what was it, the Pentagon?
The Capitol. They were
the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took action. I think of myself all the time and say, this is why I sit on the aisle seat. Because once I see that something like that, if I'm going to make my transition, then I'm going to make my transition taking out everybody that I can. and I plan on taking out a few. So therefore, you know, we then underestimate how the things, again, how that thing in that lifetime, in our lifetime, affects us. Look at our lifetime. Those of us that were born in the end of the 60s. I was born a few months before King was assassinated. So in my lifetime, I've seen King assassinated, Robert Kennedy assassinated. I've seen COINTELPRO. I've seen the Black Panthers get taken down. You go up to Rodney King. You go up and see the wars that were happening in the Middle East and Afghanistan and everything else and all of this stuff. And you look at this thing and you sometimes don't even realize how all of this affects areas within you. And it's the same thing in relationships. You look at the relationships that you've had and the relationships that others in your cipher have had, that you view, that you see. Those that maybe did not have an experience to be raised by two parents maybe have a different view of than those that were able to be raised by two parents. Those that did not have the opportunity to meet grandparents or great-grandparents and see how they lived in marriage. And they've been married for 60, 70 years. Because we maybe did not have that experience, we have a different view. We have the opportunity, those that did have that, to sit down and listen to, yeah, we went through highs, lows, ups and downs, but we never let what we went through go outside of these walls. Nobody knew what we went through. We dealt with what we had to go through ourselves. So we learn these lessons in a variety of different ways from many, many people. Maybe we didn't have it in our immediate family, but because we had friends and we grew up with them and we had the opportunity to be treated like family to them, we were able to see the dynamic even from different cultures. I had many friends of different cultures and went to their house a lot of times and watched the different dynamics in their family. And that also impresses upon me in how I deal with my daughter or how I deal with others, how I'm able to relate to other cultures. We might not understand the importance and the value of all those things, but they are extremely important into how we view life, how we view relationships, how we view even this topic of shadow work. How, if we don't have maybe a factor of what it looks like for a healthy life, then how do we know for ourselves what is healthy going through the work that we have to do? Sometimes we don't even know the work that we have to do. So therefore, what we're able to view and how we take in what we view and the experiences can then say, wow, this helps to determine how I view what a healthy relationship is, what a relationship that's going to allow longevity, what a relationship is that's going to be healthy for the generations to come, the children, the grandchildren, possibly great-grandchildren, and what is it that I'm leaving in this time for the future generations to see. Some of us have been fortunate in that our families were families that, even though there might have been challenges, ups and downs within the family, that the nuclear family was one that was able to stay together. But then other side, it could be that you learned what a healthy family is from having such a dysfunctional family. And then when you have that dysfunctional family, it allows you to know this is not the journey I want to go through. This is the opposite. When I see now, this is what I need to make sure that I am handling the situation differently. This is what it takes, that I don't have the broken family. I don't leave and leave this family here because I'm so used to seeing this in other aspects. We have to look and view at what it is that we have experienced and the ancestral experience that is within us that we might not realize the effect that it has upon us because we're not visibly able to see what they went through, but their DNA is a part of us. And so therefore, what they've gone through now affects us as well in some of the choices and the decisions and the attitudes in the way of life that we live. All of those things really become parts of a lot of our own shadow work and to help the shadow work of others that are close to us, that even especially for us as what we would say spiritual leaders, teachers, healers, whatever you want, light workers, whatever these different names that have happening or coming. We need sometimes for ourselves to even examine in ourselves how the clients that we're dealing with affect us. What kind of way can we wipe some of the energy and clear this energy off of us so that it doesn't stick with us? Because you know, when you hold on to too much stuff that's not yours, it affects your health badly. Black men, we hold on to so much. That's why we got so much prostate and bladder issues. When we hold on to such things and we don't cleanse ourselves out, the cancer, because the cancer is so negatively affecting in our community now. Breast cancer, lung cancer, all kinds of cancer. And now, you know, we even look at men with cancer, right? And that brother that played, he was it Richard Roundtree, that had even a cancer that was a little different for men because he had breast cancer, I believe, as well. So something that's not even normal. We got to look at our health and how we're dealing with things so that we're not so far fully affected negatively in that. We guys got to see all of the factors in my particular perspective, in my understanding of a lot of this.
All right. Now, my contribution, I feel, I don't know if we're ready to handle this one, but I feel like maybe we don't realize that we need to be a soulmate in order to attract a soulmate. A lot of us are thinking of ourselves as a soulmate, so you can't draw that in. How does that work to go along with the narrative right now? It's a little hard for me to explain it. I'm trying to put it in the best words I can without sounding full of myself. But technically, if you're looking at let's say a tarot deck. Let's say we're looking at a tarot deck. Essentially, you have to put yourself in the position of the fool, right? You are the hero's journey. This is all your journey. This is your process. This is essentially things that you are going through. You're encountering the strength card, which is based another way of looking at your relationship, a platonic relationship. This is you going through or encountering the Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands, another representation of your platonic relationships. And then you have the lovers as well. These cards are there to giving you these examples, but I'm just trying to give you another picture of what it is that we are encountering. What are those obstacles? Why are there these walls in the way of what it is that we're seeking? Well, chances are it's yourself putting that wall there because you're not ready yet. You haven't gone through the necessary steps to turn yourself into the fool or turn yourself into the hero. You're not a soulmate yet. So you can't be in a soulmate relationship. It's just not quite your time yet. Your internal, I guess you would say, ancestor. You're an ancestor. You're just not there yet. But in becoming that ancestor, You still have to go through certain things in order for you to hold that power. That power is your relationship, platonic or otherwise. You still have to go through that. You haven't gone through enough yet in order to be that soulmate that you're looking for. You have to reflect into someone what you expect out of them. If you're not able to reflect anything positive into that person, you can't expect something positive to be reflected back to you.
And please don't always look at that as a negative. You know,
Right, exactly.
Asking you to, become a star first. Sometimes Spirit is asking you to become a successful entrepreneur first. Sometimes Spirit is asking you to, complete your initiations, first. Sometimes Spirit is asking you to, to do often things that are for self, for the betterment of self, before, we sort of have that connection, that soulmate relationship, soulmate, romantic soulmate connection that many people, seek and desire. I often say I'm married to Voodoo. I'm married to the Oloye. I have no man, no woman, no child. My community, my family is my community and my family, and as my blood relatives increase in our connection and our sort of knowing and inner knowing, I feel an even greater sense of fulfillment and purpose in my life about who I am and what I'm doing, and the awareness that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now in this moment in time space. And again, when you look at that digitally, and where you break that down into components of time, I would not remove any digit, any component that would alter the reality that I'm experiencing today. One move to the left or the right, and I could be living a very different reality. We could be doing something else right now, in another dimensional space. This might be an auto show, or maybe porn talk in another dimensional space. Just one piece being out of position, and that's why often daily I re-say and reiterate that we create and recreate sacred space here by choice. Every time we decide to come together and do this, any one of us could decide not to be present, or might be busy and can't be present, and it changes the energy of the creative space. And let me tell you that I'm about to say it, Otun, that one day off from Oloye really did something to Otun that's visible and that's present and that we really like. Yeah, you're a little bit more vocal now. You're a little bit more present and in the camera now. You sitting on your throne as the queen, and we're grateful for that. We really are, and it's visible. That's why I'm making note of it. It's extremely visible. You said it yesterday. Once I realized I had to get in the chair and kind of take over, I just did me, and me is very beautiful. Your me is very beautiful, honey. Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate you so much, and I thank you. I know I get pushed to do stuff because I'm not always one to jump out there, but I appreciate you and Baba Oloye accepting me and everyone listening and watching. It has been a blessing. It has been an honor. I am always and will forever remain a student, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you.
Ashe, Ashe. And greetings, the beloved goddess initiative, one of my faithful godchildren and initiative.
It's a blessing.
Come on in, girlfriend. Peace and love.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We can't see you, but
Okay,
we can
so
hear
I
you.
just
All is a blessing.
okay. So I just wanted to mention how just in my experience in dealing with people who are out here looking for love, or their soulmate, twin flame, whatever you want to call it. there's a lack of accountability, in my opinion. So there's a lack of accountability as it pertains to your frequency level, um, as far as like attracts like. I think a lot of people, especially when they hear that particular phrase, like attracts likes, they always envision their best qualities. I'm good at this, I'm good at that, and I'm going to attract somebody who's also good at this and good at that. They never ever consider that your flaws as well, you're attracting that to you.
That's
Or
right.
your perceived flaws, I should say that. Your
Mhm.
less desirables, or what you perceive to be less desirable. And then that's where the shadow work comes in, because if you're not in tune with those subconscious thoughts of what you feel is less than desirable or not ideal or not up to standard, and then you draw it to you, you're like, oh my God, why do I keep getting all these types of men? Sis, you keep getting all these types of men because that's what is something in your frequency that's resonating with their frequency. Um, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, because no one wants to address, something that they might perceive to be a flaw within themselves. And many people, don't take accountability for the way that their life is going. I think I always say one of the most devastating things for people when they're in therapy or doing a spiritual journey is when they realize the actual power they have over their life and what occurs in their life. It devastates some people. It devastates them to think that they have allowed certain things to happen in their life because they had the power and the control all the time, and they either did not exercise it, or they used it for the wrong thing, or the thing that did not benefit them most at that time. Um, and so I think it's just important to address that when you're in a position, or you're in a place in your life where you want to be with someone else. Because I can testify, I have been in relationships where I was all in love. Oh my God, I thought this was like the perfect thing. And then, all the while I'm working on myself, and then one day it's like you literally like something clicks, and it's like, oh my God, how did I get here with this person? It's like we don't match. And it's because at that time when I met that person, I was at a particular frequency, and I was doing certain things and engaging in certain things. And when we came across each other, our energy levels matched. It was like, oh,
Mhm.
you on this BS, I'm on this BS too. And so, like, you
Yes,
say we were
ma'am.
trauma bonding, or and so it was good at that time. But then I elevated, and it's like, oh, wow. And so you need to, address some things a lot of times before you step out there, so that you kind of know what you truly are looking for and what you truly are attracting to you. Because frequency is a big thing. I mean, the frequency of sadness and fear and anger is 100 to 150. And the
Insecurity,
frequency of love is
resentment.
500. So literally, you're driving on two different highways.
Yes, ma'am. And we
Ashe.
You know what I mean?
yes, ma'am. We certainly appreciate
Go
that.
ahead.
We do.
Can I
Um,
piggyback off of her?
yes, please.
Um, I wanted to add to what she was saying, just to try to give context to it. Keep in mind, for those that subscribe to Christianity, or grew up in the church, or are familiar with that, there was something that I would hear my mother speak of, and it was about getting the things that you want and not adhering to spirit. In terms of not just us, as not just women, but also just men as well. Anyone needing or looking for that soulmate connection. Um, Keep in mind that yes, our destiny is written, and there are certain things that we should be doing along our journey to ensure that we're having the experiences and the lessons that we're supposed to have. In church, I remember my mother teaching me something. There's a difference that they say between being in what they call God's perfect will and his permissive will. Okay. And the difference in that is when you are in God's perfect will, they say that you are basically following the plan to the letter. You're doing what you're supposed to do, showing up where you're supposed to show up, handling what you're supposed to handle. Okay. To the plan. Then you have what they describe as God's permissive will. And this is where This is the gray area where some of us may seem to get in a little bit of trouble and run into some situations. And I say that because when you're in what they would describe as God's permissive will, that's when you're in hard head mode, okay? Because you want what you want. You're lonely. You're tired of being by yourself. You seen that she got a man and she got a man, and I was at the club with her last week and she a hoe, and I know she got a good dude, and why I don't deserve a good dude, and this and that. Same thing with the guys, man. He got that shorty and she cooking food and she doing it, man. My girl burn the oodles and noodles. Da, 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 da. Okay. At the same time, you have to understand when you act on your own and you're stepping outside of what the Most High, what Oladeji has for you, because you know what you know and you want what you want, you're gonna get what you get. Because see, sometimes when we think that we know everything, just like those of us that have children and they are determined to do this and do that, and you're like, okay, you keep running towards the wall, I'm trying to stop you, you're gonna bump your head. You keep running towards the wall, I'm trying to stop you, you're gonna bump your head. Same thing with God, okay? There are times when we just insist on doing what we're doing, and Most High be like, I'm trying to help it. Baby, if you insist, and that's when you're in God's permissive will, because at this time, he's not gonna fight you. You're like, okay, you think you know?
Well,
Let's
God,
see what you know.
But God speaks in a soft, still voice.
Exactly, and he'll let you crash test dummy.
It's your ancestors that's going to bump you in the head and make sure you feel that humanity, you know, and hopefully wake up out of your temporary trance state and sort of get it, you know, and get it together. Absolutely.
And sometimes he'll let us fall flat on our behind so we can have no choice but to look straight up at him. So we got to understand that sometimes, yeah, things will be allowed to happen, because if we're so insistent and we want to know it all, a lot of the situations sometimes will be of our own doing, because we won't have that patience. We won't do that work. We want it now, now, now. We want to pray for something, then look out the window for it to drop out of cloud. It don't work like that. So I just wanted to add to that, to understand that a lot of the time, some of the situations we have or some of the tests that may appear before us were of our own creation, because we refuse to sit down and allow the work that needs to be done, allow things to happen as they should, instead of us jumping in, pushing it along, giving it a helping hand, which it doesn't need. So I just wanted to add that in there as well.
So doesn't that come down to obedience? Obedience, or obedience even when we don't understand. Obedience even when we want something, but yet God says, this is not what I want you to do at this time. I look at the verses that speak about, are you going to follow what man desires for you to do, or are you going to follow what I say for you to do?
Listen,
and
Lloyd.
Say it again.
I said, listen, Nina Lloyd, listen.
And so if the creator, if Olodumare, if Ifa says, this is not what it is that I desire of you right now, then he is going to make things such that you're going to see and you're not going to understand. Things are going to be happening. People are going to be dropping off. Things are going to be dropping off. The winds of change is going to be all over the place. But yet, you to stand firm and to stand still, such that at the end of this time, it is said about Oya that Oya will have things blowing out everywhere. But then if you stand and you trust that Oya has your best interest at heart, that her love for you is over the top, at the end, you will see the beauty of everything manifesting if you allow her to make the transformation that she desires to make in your life. So again, we might not understand everything that is happening, but if we are obedient and we stand still, the old elders and the ancestors used to tell us all the time, when a lot of things was going on, there's simple 2 words: be still. What are you talking about? Be still and know that God is God, and everything that is manifesting at this time is meant to be, because there's a new change that's meant to be there for you. So it's the same thing. Be obedient when everything around you seems like it is blowing all over the place. There's a certain level of transformation that is meant to be happening for you in your life and in the lives maybe of those around you as well. So, you know, obedience. What is the definition? Sometimes we don't even know the definition of that which we're supposed to be practicing, right? So what is Islam? What is the meaning of Islam? The meaning of Islam is submission to do the will of God. Submission to do the will of God. What is a Muslim? One who submits himself to do the will of God. When we're looking at all that we're doing, we are to be submissive to the will of God because we are supposed to be doing this in his image. So therefore, then we are supposed to be following in the footsteps that he is laying out for us in that realm. For better, even in Ifa, we have got to be submissive and obedient, that when Orisha are working within our lives and all of these components are happening, relationships, if your husband ain't doing the right thing by you, for you, with you, all that, then you have to really take an honest look at whether everything is in alignment for it to be for longevity. Because sometimes Oya will come into that and be blowing all these things around because you are refusing to see what you're supposed to see. And it's not just that. It could be at your job. It could be in other areas of your family and life, all of those things. We have to have an honest evaluation of everything and look at it in this way, but be obedient and be humble. What is humility? Humility sometimes means that we have to submit ourselves to that which is happening, to that which the Creator is bringing in for us. Submit ourselves, to be humble, to drop down and submit ourselves. Submission and obedience. Two important factors that I feel in shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
Ashe. And submission is key, because if everything was done our way, how far do you really think you would get doing everything your way, the way you wanted it, making sure it always came out your way? That's not the way it's supposed to be. So absolutely, submission is key. And also having, like we said, shadow work, no matter what you do spiritually, everything that you do spiritually is going to boil down to the root of the depth of your shadow work. And it is going to become apparent as you call yourself diving deeper, trying to get further along, when you're coming up upon things and you can't pass certain hurdles and you're not getting a type of understanding, or you don't feel you have that type of connection. At that point, you really have to stop and examine yourself and be accountable and say, how much have I done? Did you hold up the mirror, or did you take a peek, and did you take off running? Because unless you're willing to face it, either you're going to face it on your own in the beginning and stand tall in it, or if every step you take, something going to be thrown at you until you address it. Because there are going to be places that you can only get to, that you can only access after you have done a certain amount of work, after you have achieved a certain level of healing, and after you have done a certain amount of atonement. And it will not go any other way. You can cry, you can beg, you can plead, you can sneak, you can steal. You are going to have to do the work. There are no shortcuts. There are no skips. And you are going to stay in that cycle until you do. So the choice is yours. Do you want to keep going in circles? How much do you like a merry-go-round? Or do you want to go further? You have to do the work, and at some point you have to be accountable. And also, don't look at your growth according to what you see others doing. Don't look at what they have and what you don't have. Because if you're not grateful of where you are, God ain't going to take you no further. You better love where you're at. You better get the lessons that you need to have. Because you can't grow any further if you don't see anything better for yourself, if you don't do the work, if you're not willing to dive deep, if you're not willing to accept the things within yourself that spirit is trying to get you to take notice of and make the adjustments, so you can be in a position to receive what you want, so you can be in a position to receive that man, so you can be in a position to receive that woman, so you can be in a position to have that child. Because let me tell you something, sometimes Your inside is going to stay on lockdown, because what you birth, you will bring into the world. If you don't heal yourself, you're going to take them babies right down the same path of death, destruction, and despair that you yourself was going through if you don't heal first. So everything in its time, everything happens for a reason, but you have to be willing to do the work. That is why they have that saying, faith without works is dead. So when God says move your feet, you don't have to know the direction, just get to two-stepping. All you got to do is move, lift your toe, do something. You can't just sit there and go, oh, my life is terrible. Grow out of being the victim. That's part of doing the shadow work. You got to grow out your mess sometimes. So because God ain't going to bless mess. So you're going to have to grow out of your mess, accept it, and understand that sometimes the stuff that's happening is because it's coming from you. That's why shadow work is important. You have to do the work, because it's going to keep eating at you and biting at you until you do, and you're going to tear other people down in the process. And they don't deserve that, and neither do you.
But it's so
Yeah,
easy to get
I
into that
so agree with everything you just said. It's you, if you don't address it, it's gonna come out in every relationship anyway, because those relationships are all mirrors, and it's gonna come out, and if it's not addressed, you're gonna ruin every single relationship. I mean, when you mention the children, I'm just thinking about how there are parents who have children that just bother them to their core, and then it comes out years later that those characteristics of their personality that bothered them were the same things that they were ashamed of in themselves. That or someone made them ashamed of in themselves, and they never addressed it, and so then they ended up turning around and abusing their children for their own self-hate. Yeah.
You're on mute, Divine.
You're breaking up just a little bit, beloved, but we heard you and we appreciate you. God's initiative, but you are crackling. Your line is crackling just a little bit, and I'm not sure why that is. It could be the weather. I don't know. And we did hear you, so don't be concerned. We can hear you, but it does break up just a little bit, and I just wanted you to know that in the event that you can fix it or address it. And I certainly appreciate everyone's active participation in this conversation. This indeed has been a really a great podcast, another good show, another good episode, in our journey together as family, as friends, as spiritualists, as people who are, walking this predetermined path. And I want to speak a little bit to that as well. Destiny, things predetermined. It was a response to something that I believe Craig Burns wrote a little further back. I may not be able to find it now. But if I'm correct, it had something to do with possibly the breakdown of a relationship, and that quite possibly it would, certain things are predestined. There is an element of that. I can't find the comment, so please forgive me. So I can't quote you because for some reason I can't find it. But yeah, there is a degree of predestiny at work for all of us and in everything that we do. But there's also that God consciousness part of us that allows us the opportunity to make change, to make adjustment, and to do things differently based on memory, recall, muscle memory, emotional memory to conditions that predate that particular moment in time space. So people can indeed fall in love and get married and create a relationship and grow apart. And you might consider that as a predestined thing. Perhaps they are predestined to grow apart if the work is not addressed, if they didn't do their own homework, if they made a left instead of a right, at a particular junction or crossroads in the dynamic of the relationship. And this could be a relationship like a marriage. This could be like a business. You know, this could be a friendship, a partnership, you know, and then we decide we no longer fit. We no longer work together. Now, I will say that, you know, the dynamics of the culture that we live in today, you know, we don't have one type of toothpaste. You got 40 different types of toothpaste and 40 different types of brands. And so I think we do bring even to that relationship sort of this shopping element. You know, someone said earlier on, I think it was Neophyte Bokur, about, well, how do you look for, how do you draw a specific, because it's really a specific soul that you're trying to draw to you specifically for love and relationships. And often people can't say that, Otun. Often people can't say that outright, Oloye. You know, oh, I'm looking for my soulmate, or I'm in this complicated relationship and I thought we were soulmates. You know, so I pressed them a little bit on, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? What makes that person your soulmate? And they run through the commonalities. Oh, well, we got things in common and we both like to play pool, or, you know, but there's no soul level language being presented in the conversation. Hence, soulmates. You know, you're together for something much bigger, something much deeper. Even married couples, you know, if I may, I've never been married, don't understand quite the dynamics of marriage from that perspective. Certainly don't quite understand the dynamics of heterosexual marriage, you know, but I know what marriages are, partnerships are, unity is, contracts are. Indeed, in Voodoo, we have marriage loa, where you have a marriage ceremony to a loa, which is very similar to a human marriage, you know, where people come together and there's some agreement, there's some understanding that I'm bringing this to the table, but even in the down times, even in the sad times, I'm committing to this relationship. I'm committing to that which developed from my relationship. And of course, children, you know, then come into play, which bind you together, not just for 18 years. I hate when people say that, not just for 21 years, forever. Once children come into play, y'all bond together forever. Even if mommy and daddy never speak to each other again, y'all are bonded together forever by way of the children. So often, even in addressing ancestral work, I ask, how many children? Who are the children? Because those ancestors are also pushing forward an agenda, you know, to the benefit of the children. And if mommy and daddy are at each other's throats and no longer see the love, no longer feel the soulmate connection, you know, you can't neglect how that is now affecting generations to follow. And again, I'm not trying to sound like a puritist, but, you know, sex and birth and babies is a really complex, serious life contract. You know, it really is. And so not only are the children that are being born affected, but those children and those children's children, bloodline lineage, you know, as well as the environment. You know, our children are then exposed to many other people in the community. So that energy is then expanded outwards.
And the ancestors of those two lines, right?
That's
because
right.
If the ancestors come back, if I remember right, going back several generations, it equals over 10,000 people when you deal with going. So imagine 10,000 at least ancestors that are affected by the birth of this one child between you and this man or woman. And so now the work that you're doing with ancestors is really somewhat different for the children, because they have their own line, their own relationship with ancestors that really you don't have, because you married them, but you're not carrying the blood within you of. So now it's a whole different realm that you got to deal with when it comes to the ancestors of your children. I hope that everybody understands and remembers that. It is so important. even when you guys don't get along anymore, to understand the importance of maintaining at least somewhat workability for those children to be able to feel good about both sides of their family, so that they can work close with the ancestors.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I wanted to respond to Craig Burns. So how we react to a predestined time is important. I would say it's important in that, okay, let me put it this way. Death is predestined. Now in the moment of life, you can't remember the time. Some people claim to have a glimpse of it. We know some people who claim they knew when they were going to die. They were given a glimpse of that timing. But often the human hosts themselves are disconnected from that timing. But we all accept that death is predetermined, it's predestined. We all gonna die. So you live every moment as if it's your last. You live every moment and you give all that you have in every moment. That's why things like sloth and laziness and impatience and those things are sort of looked down on, socially in our society, in our culture. Indeed, it's weather. I like to use the word weather that we all experience. We all want to quit every now and again. I can't tell you how many times, 15 minutes before noon, I would really want to do something else. But then I remember what my purpose is, what my ministry is, and then I show up, So we live every moment as if it's your last. My goodness, if you drive a car, my goodness, you live every moment as if you might not make it home, and you do what you can to protect yourself and to protect your precious cargo. And indeed, if you have others in the car with you, but we take that risk every moment, every hour of the day, of it being a predetermined, moment, event that, afterwards on the after side, we wish I could have prepared for that. Or I wish I could have prepared for 9/11 before I actually left my house and got on the subway that day and went to work. Or I wish I could have prepared myself, for Oklahoma bombing. There are events that happen that are inflicted on us in life that indeed are predestined. And I'm not suggesting that God has predetermined negative events, but God certainly can see the negative events and can certainly predetermine, if you will, all the components to sort of these life-changing events that we come across, that we sometimes call casualties, calamities, traumatic events. So we have to live each moment as if it's your last. You have to give all that you have spiritually, emotionally, personally, with your loved ones, whether it's about your career or your job, that piece that you're working on right now. My next suit is always my best Mardi Gras suit, my next suit. Because once you get it done and it's done, and now you're on to the next thing, because you're living as if it's your last day, as if it's your last moment. I certainly appreciate you all. It has been a great show. I mean, really a great show. And I'm sure all of us have so much more that we could offer. I want to give my cousins an opportunity to speak their last words and to close out. Give me a chance to sort of go through this chat.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to come and share with you all. I hope that today was beneficial to you and understanding another component of shadow work and the depth by which you now have to go understanding that sometimes shadow work takes you to the depth of the bottom of the ocean. I say Olokun, but the depth of a situation and a circumstance, down to a point where it's so broken that you have no choice but to submit. And in that submission is the true beginning of your healing. Sometimes you have to go to total ending for there to be a new beginning. And so I hope that everybody sees some of these things and will now look to what can be a new beginning in their life and what they can do to go deeper into their own shadow work to manifest the full healing in their life, in all areas of their life and of their family, of everything around them. So blessings to each and every one of you. Peace.
I'm sorry, I was responding to the Goddess Initiative talking about that sex magic myth. Today has been absolutely awesome, Sauce. I am very appreciative and grateful to everyone that has taken part in the discussion. Those of you that did not get to share your feelings and thoughts, or even if you were unsure if they would be accepted or welcomed, please reconsider that for the next show. Never be afraid to speak your mind. It's all right. There's nothing wrong. We are all adults here. We can agree to disagree, but we would love to hear from you, whether it's seeing you on webcam or calling in. Everyone has something to contribute. So all of your contributions, your comments, your emotions, your thoughts, they're all valid and they're very much welcome. I am grateful to everyone listening and watching today. I so look forward to the next time. I see someone has asked for a part 2. I'm with it. If Divine and Baba Oloye with it, because there's so much more still to dive into. And I certainly there's much more and so many different angles we can hit. So blessings to everyone. I love you. I've enjoyed this. And until next time, may your blessings meet you at the door.
Ashe. And yes, we definitely will have part 2. There's more to soulmates. I'm willing to explore, the whole conversation of the whole sex magic thing, once again. And, I agree, what has been said in the chat. Okay, but you're really now describing witchcraft, which is, again, why I find the whole sex magic thing to be so problematic. You're really describing witchcraft, and the using of witchcraft for carnal, personal gain. And as Otun suggested, it definitely does go wrong. We have all, to some degree, seen it go wrong in the worst kinds of ways. I am even guilty, as a younger person, of binding people together, not being party to, but sort of being the orchestrator of, who should not have ever been together. And it taught me the lesson of really, again, looking into your own soul. Who are you? Where are you in this process? What are you here to do? What is your life purpose? That must really be clear when we start looking for the romantic soulmate. What's broken about you? Where you are right now? What are you looking to feel and fulfill? What shortcut might you be seeking? What antidote might you be looking for to relieve something that might be lurking, in your shadow work? Because we've all heard our elders say, baby, when you stop looking, the man will come. When you stop looking, the right woman will come to you. God gonna send the right, we've all heard grandma, grandpapa say that. There's some divine truth in that, because ultimately you're here to fulfill a life destiny, which can be altered at any moment. Even if you're married and living the best of lives, one partner dies, the children die, or some negative event takes place, and so then what do? You don't just dissolve into nothingness. You don't just choose to remain broken. You can't let it haunt you, beloved, for the rest of your life. You have to pick up and remember that I am God. I am the goddess. I have the ability to change and create and recreate my reality to mirror my best interests. And your reality does not die with the physical host of whom you perceive your soulmate to be connected to in that moment. Because again, we're talking about souls. We're talking about light bodies. We're talking about that part of us that survives death, that part of us that survives, mortality. So that can move on, that can transfer from one place to another, that can be elevated, that can be degraded. So check your vibration first when thinking about soulmates. When thinking about why you're not in the relationship that you seek. And some of you do not want to be in a relationship. Let me be clear. Some of you who believe you're looking for a relationship, who are looking for the psychic reader to help you to understand what's going on in your relationships, really do not want to be in a relationship, and you are disconnected from your own reality. You're in denial of your own signals, the own little signs that you give off physically and spiritually that you do not want to be bothered. And others, suitors, are able to sense that, to detect that. We can pretty it up for a day or two, men or women, and I'm going to go out to the club and I'm going to catch, and others who might be vibrating at that place or even broken might be drawn temporarily, might be attracted temporarily. But that partner who's really for you is going to perceive, this woman don't want to be bothered. This man really doesn't want to be bothered. And so I know for some of my clients, it's very hard for them to understand how I create and recreate my own reality when it's not mirroring what I want it to look like right now. How did I end up in this place? How did I end up with this man or this woman in this crazy broken place, having accepted all of this abuse, having accepted all of this? How did I get there? And I think for some people, it's very hard for them to accept and to see, what about me drew you to me? What about me made you choose me? What about me made me choose you? And continue on this journey with you so that we can end up in this place. So I look forward to the continuation of this conversation on our next episode, Wednesday. Let me check my calendar. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I temporarily disconnected myself. I was trying to check my calendar. I'm still not visible. I don't know what's going on. Let me check my calendar. Wednesday is July. So Wednesday is, what's today? 28th. Oh, Wednesday is the 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll be here. Everything is good. All is a blessing. So I look forward to meeting you all here at High Noon. I know why I'm confused. We're having a big event in New Orleans East tomorrow, June 29th. It's a pop-up event in New Orleans East. It'll also have voter registration. People will be out there to register people to vote. We absolutely will be talking about the city council and making sure that all of these running politicians in the coming months are aware that you can't run without addressing Congo Square and City Hall not being moved to May as a part of your platform. So that will be in New Orleans East tomorrow. It'll be a second line event and a pop-up event in New Orleans East Tuesday, June 29th. So absolutely, Wednesday, June 30th, I'll be here. I'll meet you all here at High Noon. I'm grateful. I'm appreciative. I look forward to the next time. I'm grateful for my cousins, all my family members who join us, who participate with us, my co-hosts, Shamathia and Neophyte Bokur. I appreciate you. And until next time, remembering that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you could just see beyond the veils, It's all just an illusion, y'all. And a test. Just a bit of a challenge. Just a bit of a polish to make you a diamond. And the God and the goddess that you are. So until next time, peace and blessings. Multiply. Odabo.
Odabo.
Odabo.